All right, we are back with another pick'em video, and what a game last night to start off the conference finals. Pacers versus Celtics go to overtime, and the Pacers end up throwing that game away, really, is what happened. It was awesome to be in the building. It was insane atmosphere, especially as a Celtics fan. Wasn't looking great down the stretch, but some timely turnovers for the Pacers, and Rick Carlisle, again, not going for the foul when you're down or when you're up by three to avoid exactly what happened with Jaylen Brown, tying the game, and then eventually the Celtics go on to win it in overtime. The reads were really good in yesterday's video. We ended up going 1 and 2 in our video picks. We're going to do a quick breakdown at the end of this video, but in terms of our leans, we were spot on. Pritchard hit the 2 threes. Tatum and Brown both went over their scoring. Tatum did his rebounding, like we mentioned, and really just a high-paced game, kind of like we expected. And it's going to be a fun series. Obviously, the Pacers are not going to lie down. But in terms of the longevity of the series, you have to win those games as the underdog going into an away arena and really throwing that game away. You have to come away with those wins if you want to win this series. So, hey, I think it's going to be a little bit closer than people expected. The Pacers are legit. They're a good offensive team. They're one of the best offensive teams throughout the whole season, and they're showing that they're not ready to slow down at all. But today, we're going to be talking the Western Conference Finals, Game 1. We got Timberwolves and the Mavericks. Don't have a ton of history on these two teams. They did play each other, I think, 4 times this season. But 2 of those games, the Mavericks sat everyone pretty much. And then Kyrie really there's only one game to look at where everyone really played. So we're going to be looking at January 7th matchup, kind of break down what we saw there. And of course, it's playoffs. It's going to be different, but it is good to have at least one game to look at and see what happened in there. So I think this is going to be fun. Again, conference finals, it's just getting closer and closer to that, ultimate goal that these guys are set out to achieve. And we're getting some great basketball. And I expect this to be nothing different than yesterday. I think it's going to be, a 6-7 game series between these two. And super excited to jump into it. But if you're new around here, definitely go ahead and subscribe. Leave the video a like and comment anything down below. Just going to tell YouTube to, hey, push this video out a little bit more. And super excited to jump into the picks for today. All right, so before we jump into the real picks, I do want to kind of break down what I'm thinking for this series, especially Game 1. It's also Game 1, play light, like I mentioned yesterday. Anything can really happen. We don't really have a feel for these two teams because they've only really had that one game that I mentioned where Luka and Kyrie were active on one side, and then the Timberwolves were fully healthy on the other side. And that doesn't even put into account that now the Mavericks have Daniel Gafford. Now the Mavericks have PJ Washington instead of Grant Williams. So we really haven't truly seen these two teams go at it. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that there's a huge size advantage. Obviously, Gobert, Towns, even Naz Reid off the bench are true, 6'10", 6'11", 7-footers. Whereas, Gafford's more 6'10", bigger body, and Lively does have that size, but a little bit skinnier and also a rookie. So especially for the power forward position, Towns is getting a really big advantage here over someone like PJ Washington. But the fact that I don't really want to go to someone like Towns, especially into Game 1, is just due to the fact that I'm a little scared of foul trouble on both sides of here. So they're the top 3 teams, both Mavericks and the Timberwolves, in terms of drawing fouls. We know that Daniel Gafford loves to get into foul trouble early. If that means that Derek Lively is going to get a boost in minutes potentially, but Lively also gets in foul trouble pretty quickly. And then the other side of things, we've seen Towns miss some minutes in terms of games because of that foul trouble. PJ Washington, kind of similar things. All these guys, the bigger guys especially, the defensive guys, are at risk here at getting some early fouls. So that's something I'm kind of shying away from, especially in Game 1. So for today's picks, I'm really going to be focusing on superstars, and I don't mind it because 2 guys that we're going to be looking at today had excellent, really, really good games back in January when they did face off. The closest thing we're going to get to some sort of history between these two teams. Now, of course, that was the regular season. The playoffs can be totally different. But going back and watching that game, watching the recap of that game, it was so back and forth. And sometimes those regular season games that are really a dogfight back and forth, you get the lead. It feels more like a playoff game and playoff atmosphere. And that's kind of the feeling that I got from that. So that was superstars going at it. And the Mavericks ended up winning that game. And that's kind of be the main game that I'm going to be looking at in terms of any sort of history between these two teams, because the other 3 games you can really throw out the window. So with that said, let's go to Kyrie Irving. He's going to be the guy that I'm going to be looking at. If you think about the matchups, the defensive matchups here, Jaden McDaniels has been clamping up superstars left and right, and he's going to be dealing with Luka mostly. And if Luka, plays efficiently like he does, Kyrie's super efficient. Maybe Luka lets Kyrie cook a little bit, which he didn't really do all last series. So I like Kyrie a few different ways. You're going to see them being popular tabs. I don't know if this is going to be popular tabs on the under. A lot of people just look at the last 5 games and take what that says. I'm going to be taking the over here, though. PRA, points, or his 3-pointers made. I think you can look at all of them, and I think they're all looking pretty good against this Timberwolves team. Now, again, you might be calling me crazy here because Kyrie hasn't been scoring, but that's, again, why you can't just look at the last 5 games and base your betting off that. So let's go to Kyrie's page here. 30.5 PRA is the best EV play, and I definitely don't mind it because, again, in that matchup where he played, I don't even know, 30-something minutes Kyrie did. This is that matchup on January 7th. He played 39 minutes, again, playoff-type minutes as well. He went over his rebounding line, which was 4.5 today, and his assist line, which is, I think, is 3.5 today, or maybe vice versa, 3.5 for rebounding. Whatever it might be, he went over on both those lines, and on top of that, he scored 35 points with Luka scoring 34. So I really like Kyrie today. Again, I'm not asking for 35 like he did last time, 35, 8, and 5. He can really just go out and score, 25, chip in with, 5 rebounds and assists in there. Combination, that's all we're really going to need here. So really liking Kyrie. Kyrie, these are the past 2 matchups. Throw this one out the window. That was last year. But again, obviously crushed that 35, 8, and 5. That'd be 48 total PRA. But that's not everything you got to be looking at. Here is the entire season. Again, regular season is not always going to translate perfectly to the playoffs, as we see here. But it's not like Kyrie wasn't playing efficiently. He can almost sense when he's not shooting well, and then he turns into a distributor. Some of these games, 9 points, but he had 9 assists there. So I do like comboing this up for the PRA. And again, it is the best in terms of EV as well, or at least it was, which is why you can always use something like DG Fantasy, which just shows you the market value. That's where you're going to see the EV. And it does seem like things have shifted a little bit. Now they're liking the 3-pointers made, which makes sense to me. I think he knocked down like 6 of 8 threes in that January 7th matchup. I know he has not been shooting as many in the playoffs, but in the Thunder series specifically. But back in the first round, he was knocking them down. So I don't mind his 3-pointers made. Again, if he's going to be scoring a lot, if I think he's going to be scoring a lot, 3 threes is definitely, more likely to happen than not. They do like his assists as well. Again, kind of going into that PRA. We see a bunch of different things. Points on the over, PRA slightly on the over. It's not like they're crazy expecting this to go over. They're giving it a slight edge, 50.4% on most of these. So again, really liking it in terms of the odds. Books are slightly favoring the over, which is always good to see. And again, we see a nice 70% hit rate for the entire year. Yes, it has gone down in that OKC series specifically, but we saw him have some pretty good games against the Clippers. Obviously that 40-point explosion, chipping in with 7 rebounds and 5 assists. I think we see one of those games from Kyrie today, especially if Jaden McDaniels is really locking in on Luka Doncic. So that's going to be our first play. Kyrie, pick and choose your favorite one. If you think he's going to be, rebounding a little bit better, maybe, assisting a little bit more, and you like that cushion, maybe go to his PRA. But if you just think Kyrie's going to have a good scoring game, maybe just take his points or look at his 3-pointers made. I can quickly show you the 3-pointers made in terms of the graph, if I can find that. Right here, you see the last 10 games. Didn't score a ton of points in that game, closeout game 6 against the Thunder, but did have 4 threes there. 5 of the last 10 games, if you want to look back at that head-to-head matchup again, he did have 6 threes and shot 6 of 8 from 3. And then again, if you want to look back to last year, he had 4 threes against this team. So a little bit different team. Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington joining the club. But again, Kyrie's going to do Kyrie things. And, 40 minutes is what I expect from him today, which is sometimes nice. You don't have to worry about a guy that's playing, 15 to 22 minutes to get a lot of stats really quickly. Sometimes the reads are there on those guys, but sometimes also it's nice to just rely on a superstar who's going to see a whole lot of time. So Kyrie, he's going to be our first play. Again, pick and choose your favorite one, whether it's PRA, points, or his 3-pointers made. I like them all. And then moving along to our next play, again, superstar on the other side of things, keeping it easy, going to Anthony Edwards here. Now, in terms of the people looking at Kyrie and saying, oh, why would you go to Kyrie? Jaden McDaniels might be on Luka, but Anthony Edwards is going to be guarding Kyrie. I think Anthony Edwards is a solid defender. Absolutely. He's can get some timely steals like he did down the stretch of Game 7. But he's walking around saying he clamped up Jamal Murray, all these things. Meantime, Jamal Murray had 24 points in the first half and with 35 on the night. While Anthony Edwards himself shot 6 of 24. Don't even know how many points he scored in that game. But it was really Naz Reid and Karl-Anthony Towns that led them offensively. Anthony Edwards was huge on other aspects of the game, rebounding pretty well, getting his teammates involved. He was getting double teamed a decent amount, but in terms of the defense on Kyrie, I think Kyrie is going to be able to do what he kind of wants to do, and I think Kyrie can really do what he wants to do against most NBA players. One of the more skilled players in the NBA, kind of universally considered one of the most skilled players ever, and I don't think Anthony Edwards, might get a steal or two off him, but not going to lock him up. But going into our next play, it is Anthony Edwards. 45 fantasy score because I think he can chip in with a block or maybe a steal or two. And then also his 39.5 PRA for those people not on PrizePicks. But if you aren't on PrizePicks, by the way, use my link in the description for really any of the DFS platforms. It's always going to be on multiple because you can line shop and get different prices, different places. But PrizePicks also has fun lines like dunk lines. Anthony Edwards usually has a 0.5 dunk lines if you want to go to that. Fantasy score is obviously a huge one, but it just gives you more options, and PrizePicks is a lot of fun. But yeah, 45 fantasy score or 39.5 PRA. I think Anthony Edwards is going to have one of those games, especially coming off that 6-24 performance in Game 7, where he couldn't really get anything going because he was being double teamed most of that game. But that was also the Nuggets, a very prestigious defensive team, whereas now they're facing the Mavericks, who have definitely stepped it up defensively, but they're not anything crazy in terms of the defensive side of the ball. So yeah, really liking Anthony Edwards. Let's hop into his page here. Again, multiple different ways to go to this guy. We'll start at the fantasy score because that has kind of the best hit rate throughout the season, throughout the playoffs, and the head-to-head. We'll quickly look at that January 7th matchup. Again, don't take everything into the January 7th matchup, but 62 fantasy points in that game. If you want to go check out what he did in that one. 36 points, 10 rebounds, which is interesting, 3 assists, and did chip in with 3 steals and 1 block. There's that defense if you guys would really love to see that. But yeah, liking all of that. Obviously, huge game, 62 fantasy points. We don't need that. All we need is 46 is all we need. Going into 2023 as a whole, hit this in 47% of games. If you want to look at most of the playoff games, about a 50% hit rate. But again, this is defense of the Nuggets, and now we're looking at defense of the Dallas Mavericks, who again have stepped it up a little bit, but they're nothing close to what the Nuggets are. So kind of playing into my idea that Karl-Anthony Towns potentially gets into foul trouble. If that does happen, obviously Anthony Edwards is going to have a much bigger load of the offense on his shoulders. But at the same time, if Towns is hitting shots, which I kind of expect Towns to have a pretty good game, I just have that slight idea that he might get into foul trouble. But if Karl-Anthony Towns is having that good offensive game, hopefully Anthony Edwards is the guy that's setting him up, getting a few assists there. So I think they work well off each other, and his 45.0 fantasy score is also pretty solid EV. Going into DG Fantasy here, you can check this out for 25% off your first month, by the way, using my link in the description. But it's his best EV play, 53.04% chance to go over. And why is that? It's because 3 other places got his fantasy score up, 46.4, 45.8, and 46.2 on DraftKings, BetMGM, and Bovada. So really liking to see that, good market value, but also running into the idea that, Anthony Edwards, I think, will have a pretty solid game here. And then in terms of everything else, points and assists, some places have this at 34.5. PrizePicks is still at 33.5, so getting a good edge there. His PRA right here, still 51.77% chance to hit. A lot of books, thinking that his lines, especially on PrizePicks, are just maybe a tiny bit too low, or maybe if they're not too low, they're still, projecting to go over here. So I like Anthony Edwards. Again, it's nice to go to a guy that's going to be playing 40 minutes. You don't have to worry about him getting his stats quickly. And again, 50% hit rate in terms of the last 10 games. If you want to look at the last 20, these are more of the playoff games. Phoenix, he had a great game. Phoenix in general, he had a great series. Then, Denver's a little bit better defensively, but now they got the Mavericks, who play a little bit quicker and are not the best defensive team. So really liking both these guys, Kyrie and Anthony Edwards, kind of facing off against each other, and hopefully we see a lot of offense like we did in that January 7th matchup during the regular season. So that's going to do it for today's official video picks. We're going to Kyrie and Anthony Edwards, keeping things simple here. Kyrie, probably a popular play on the under, but I think it's going to be more like the Clippers series where he sees a bigger offensive scoring load, whereas last series he was more of the facilitator. Luka's going to be having to deal with Jaden McDaniels. I think Luka's going to be able to do his normal Luka things, but if he does deter to Kyrie, that's going to play right into our hand here. In terms of what I specifically wrote into, PRA, points or his three-pointers made. We talked about all of them, and they're all looking pretty good. In terms of the other side of things, we got Anthony Edwards. Fantasy score and his PRA are what I'm kind of leaning towards. He could have a really good scoring game today, as he has in the past against this team. And coming back from a game where he shot 6 of 24, that should even itself out. And, especially if a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns gets into foul trouble or something, Ant should really step up here. Talking about foul trouble, I want to talk a little bit about my leans. I think Karl-Anthony Towns is in a spot to have a great game. Huge size advantage over PJ Washington, who is the Mavericks starting power forward. And we saw him score really well back on that January 7th matchup that I keep alluding to. The only problem was he ended up picking up 5 fouls in that game, so only played like 27, 28 minutes, deterring himself a little bit early in that thing. You saw that in his rebounding numbers, 7 rebounds only, and I think like 1 assist. So that is something that I'm scared of about specifically for these bigs, because the Timberwolves and the Mavericks are so good at drawing fouls. On the other side of things, I think Derrick Jones Jr. is going to be a guy that I want to look at. If he gets a fantasy score, that's really what I'm interested in, because I think he has potential to get some blocks and steals like he's been doing all throughout the playoffs, but also has a very good history against this Timberwolves team at getting blocks and steals. But he's also been scoring extremely well, so I kind of like that combo of him being able to do it on a multitude of different ways. But yeah, those are kind of my leans, Derrick Jones Jr. and Karl-Anthony Towns. I kind of want to look into a little bit more. But yeah, really liking the plays for today, and super excited about the game tonight. And then if you got to this point in the video, I do appreciate if you like the video, comment something down below. It tells YouTube to push this out, and subscribe if you are new. Also, if you're interested in talking about sports, players, props, all different types of things, I do have a Discord community. You can check us out. The link is in the description, and there's like step-by-step process of how to get in here. You sign up through Dub Club, and people are always, talking about sports. It's not just NBA in here. We talk MLB, esports, WNBA, whatever it might be. We have a lot of laughs in here too. It's nothing, I'm not like a very strict person in here. I'm not going to ban you for saying certain things unless you're being, annoying and want to be civil in here. But yeah, we have a lot of fun. It's a bunch of like-minded people, and it's a lot of fun. So just check us out. I'd love to have you. You can get in here a bunch of different ways for free as well. All my codes and my links are in the description of this video. If you want to check out PrizePicks, Underdog, Chalkboard, Sleeper, Dabble, we really look at all of them. These are my favorite DSF platforms. And then again, if you use my code and sign up, just DM me, say, hey, use your code, and I can get you in for a free month of the Discord, which you can't really beat. It's kind of like a win-win-win. When you sign up, they're going to give you 100% deposit matches. A lot of these to $100. Underdog's actually giving you up to $250 right now, so you want to take advantage of that, which is a huge plus in doing this stuff. But it's also a reason to be on multiple platforms. It's because, sometimes PrizePicks is giving us a discount, like Taco Tuesdays, where we get 3 pretty solid discounts. Yesterday was awesome discounts. Underdog has been throwing discounts at us literally every single day. Chalkboard's awesome with boosted plays and flash sales. Sleeper, you get Wildcard Wednesday. Sometimes they drop protected plays. So those are different reasons you want to be on multiple DFS platforms. So again, kind of a win-win-win. Get into the Discord for free using these, and then you can, be able to tail me or other people that are talking plays on the different apps. It's great to line shop as well. DG Fantasy, that optimizer we were looking at here, this is also going to give you a free month of the Discord if you want to check them out. Again, it's not just NBA. If you want to go ahead and select all of these, you're going to be able to see everything on PrizePicks, and you're going to be able to see the best EV play at that time. So this has got Chris Bassett. They're saying PrizePicks is a lot too high. DraftKings has this at 29.8. Caesars 30.2, whereas PrizePicks are at 33.5. So it's a great way to start your research and say, oh, maybe I should look into Chris Bassett. Are the hitters on the other team, hitting him pretty well? And is he a good strike up, whatever it might be. So it's a great way to start your research, and again, does translate to a free month. So that's my pitch for the Discord. I'd love to have you, and super excited again about the games for tonight. And we're going to be talking about those, sweating the plays out together like we always do. And then in terms of the video picks from last night, we ended up going 1-2 on our official video picks. Obi Toppin hit extremely fast. His points was 7.5. I think he ended with a whole bunch, but he, again, scored very quickly. And then TJ McConnell, a bunch of opportunities there, but ended up getting us a hook on his assist line, ended with 4. We just needed 5. So again, 1-2 on that, but the leans were on point. Peyton Pritchard hit his 3-pointers line that we talked about. Tatum hit his rebounds line and his points line, both we talked about. And Jaylen Brown also, I kind of said, hey, you can pick or choose. One of these guys is definitely go over, and they both went over. And they've done that multiple times against the Pacers in the past. So pretty solid day yesterday in terms of our reads. I talk a whole bunch during these videos. We're approaching 20 minutes now. So I ultimately gave you guys a few picks, but hopefully you get, some more information just based on what I'm kind of saying. Because I do take a lot of time in, looking at these different matchups. Watching the games is a huge part of it too. Super excited to dive into some MLB, some WNBA for tonight, and of course, a few more plays in tonight's game. But that will finally do it. I'll see you guys tomorrow, or if you're in the Discord, I'll see you in there. Peace out.